breaking news out of Germany tonight. At least 2 people have been killed. 68 other people have been injured after a car traveling at high speed plowed into a Christmas market in Germany. A suspect is in custody. He is, according to authorities, a Saudi Arabian doctor in his 50s who has lived in Germany since 2006. This attack taking place in the city of Magdeburg, Germany, west of Berlin. About 250, 300,000 people there. Their market crowded at that hour. Just about 3 hours ago, a little bit more than 3 hours ago now. Joining us now, our ABC News chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell. Ian, what are you hearing at this hour about this attack?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly getting more pieces of the puzzle. We're still awaiting an official press conference by German security authorities, but the Prime Minister of the state in which Magdeburg is based and the Interior Minister of that state have been giving sort of impromptu press conferences nearby. We now know, tragically, that at least 2 people have been killed, and we also now understand that one of those killed was a toddler, the other an adult, possibly the parent, but we don't know that yet. Over 60 have been injured. We also understand from a US source, a security source, that German authorities are regarding this as a potential act of terrorism. We certainly know that, again, local authorities were saying that the act certainly appeared deliberate, and we can't show you the whole of the CCTV footage from the site. It's too tough to watch, but you know, we have looked at it. It certainly appears a deliberate act. It's a brutal video to watch as this car plows at high speed into this packed Christmas market just 5 days beforehand. Now, we know there's been a lot of pressure about trying to tighten security measures. The National Interior Minister, speaking just a few weeks ago in Germany, had said that there was no indication that Christmas markets were no indication of a credible, concrete security threat. So I think there are going to be lots of questions about what security measures were in place here, given that Germany has experienced an attack like this. It was an attack a few years ago in Berlin that killed 13 people by an Islamic extremist. So it has always been a concern for many, many years. Across Europe, of course, Germany's famous for these beautiful Christmas markets, also parts of France and Belgium too. There had been a suggestion that other authorities across Europe were also concerned about a possible increase threat environment. And just one last thing, we understand that the United States is in contact with the local authorities to try and ascertain whether or not there are any US citizens at that market at the time. Terry?
Got it. Thank you for that, Ian. And if I can follow up, having lived over there, covered that rash of attacks that seemed never ending for several years in the mid-2010s, has there been a sense that problem was managed, under control, whatever you might say, or you know, has there been a continuing concern that affected daily life of people?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we went through that terrible period. There were attacks here in London, London Bridge, Borough Market, attacks in France, obviously terrible attacks in Spain as well, and in Germany. So we seem to have every few weeks that those kind of spate of lone wolf, if you like, terrorist attacks. Of course, we saw more organised. A lot of them were inspired by ISIS. But since the downfall of ISIS and the weakening of ISIS, the number of those attacks certainly seems to have diminished. A lot of places, I mean, here in London, for example, you can't walk, when you walk across some of the main bridges, like Westminster Bridge, near Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, they have these huge metal structures on the sidewalk. That means it's totally impossible to get a vehicle through there. And again, the Rambla in Barcelona, which was the scene of that terrible truck attack, again, security measures have been put in place to try and stop those kinds of things happening. So I think there is a general perception here that that threat level has diminished, as ISIS as a threat has diminished, Al-Qaeda as a threat has diminished, and of course we've been reporting on different conflicts and different tensions in different areas. But I think everybody is now going to be looking again at the security measures that are in place. There'll still be many Christmas markets across the continent that are going to take place. We have plenty here in Britain as well. Everyone's now going to be looking at the security measures, and I don't doubt there'll be more than one family with kids who are going to say, maybe not this year.
Yeah, and which operates as a kind of triumph for the terrorists. That part of their point is to demoralize and and to frighten people into changing their lives. That's on what you might call the homeland side of European countries and of this country as well. You cover the Middle East and wars there extensively, have over the years. What, in your assessment, is the nature of the kind of threat that drove these attacks 10 years ago, really since 9/11, and did seem to abate for a little while?
There was a lot of anger, pretty much about the US-led response to 9/11, primarily in Iraq. And that opened up a can of worms, a whole series of events. And in some senses, the events that we've seen just play out in the last couple of weeks in Syria are still part of the reverberations from that shock of the unseating of Saddam Hussein, the unleashing of this rise in fanaticism, first of all, the growth of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. It then gave birth to ISIS, sectarian violence, the increasing strength of the so-called axis of resistance. We saw the Arab Spring happen, which started off as a civilian-led moment of hope, but quite rapidly in a number of countries like Libya and like Syria led to extremism. And so, yeah, we're still kind of feeling the shockwaves from that. Now, of course, it also unleashed kind of huge waves of people moving around the region. And there were certainly concerns from a lot of security agencies across Europe that the people had embedded themselves in decent, honest citizens who were seeking refuge from war, as they are entitled to do, and that cynically terrorist extremists were using those crowds of people that we saw leaving Syria and other places, getting on boats and going to places. And this is something that, you've seen in the United States being mentioned by a lot of politicians on the right, saying that Europe has made a rod for its own back by allowing all these people in. Well, clearly, the truth is that the vast majority of people are law-abiding, hard-working citizens. Many of them are far harder working than the national populations. But for many people, it has become a cynical opportunity to try and expose the weaknesses in what they see as the kind of the way that the West has treated Islam and treated the Islamic world. Now, it does feel like we're potentially entering a different era at the moment, with the settling of a lot of scores, the weakening of Hezbollah, the overthrow of Assad, the weakening of Iran has really kind of shaken up the trees in a way that I think we haven't seen in the region. We have to see how that plays out. Syria is still prone to extremism. We saw today US attacks against ISIS targets. They say they managed to kill another senior ISIS leader in Syria, who had interestingly moved into former regime areas, former regime bases. So in other words, ISIS is also using this moment to try and capitalize. And of course you have ISIS in Afghanistan. So the threats have changed. They have slightly diminished, but they certainly have not gone away.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The upheaval in the Middle East, could be part of a new chapter in this long-running struggle that we have against this scourge. Ian Pannell in London, thanks very much.